Antes que yo empiece, ¿quién aquí habla inglés? Who speaks English? Sí, okay. Voy a hablar un poco de Spanglish. ¿Is that okay? Me siento más cómodo hablar inglés. Anyways, guys, it's so good to be here with you in Lima. My name is Carlos Gil. I'm going to speak to you over the next 60 minutes or so about the future of social media. And if you guys have any questions, si tienen alguna pregunta, voy a estar aquí el día entero. So feel free to come up to me afterward, ask some questions, tweet at me, send me a message on Instagram. It's CarlosGil83. So I first want to say, hola, this has been a great conference. Thank you to EXMA for bringing me out here to Peru to speak to all of you. I absolutely love the Peruvian culture. I love the food. Me encanta el lomo saltado. So it is great to be here with all of you. I'm actually joining you from Los Angeles, California in the United States. Now, before I get started, I want to invite you, those of you that are on Snapchat, to add me on Snapchat at @thecarlosgil. By show of hands, I'm really curious to see how many of you in the room are on Snapchat. ¿Quién aquí tiene cuenta de Snapchat? Okay. About 30% of you. I've been hearing from different conversations over the last couple of days that Snapchat is not a platform that's used as much in Latin America as it is in the United States or as it is in Europe. So the good news is that what I'm going to talk to you today about storytelling, and a lot of what I'm going to talk to you about is going to be about Snapchat. These strategies around storytelling are relevant on Instagram, they're relevant on Facebook, just like they are on Snapchat. Now, once again, my name is Carlos Gil. You can find me on Twitter, you can find me on Instagram at CarlosGil83. Also, if you're on YouTube, I encourage you to add me on there. I'm recording for my YouTube vlog right here in the front, and I have a lot of content on there as well. Now, I've worked in social media for the last 10 years. Yo he trabajado con las redes sociales por ya 10 años. Trabajé para LinkedIn, trabajé para la empresa de Winn-Dixie. Winn-Dixie is one of the largest supermarket chains in the United States. So I've spent 10 years now devoting almost every hour of my day, whether it's a personal brand, whether it's running social media for some of the largest brands in the United States and around the world, like LinkedIn and BMC Software. And here's what I've learned, ladies and gentlemen. Social media evolution is inevitable. Social media evolution is inevitable. And what I mean by this statement is that these platforms that we've come to relate to as Facebook, as Instagram, as Snapchat, they're going to change. I can guarantee you that. 5 years ago, at a conference like this, we would have been talking about how to dominate Twitter, how to dominate platforms like Facebook. Today, we're talking about Instagram, we're talking about Snapchat. And why is that? It's because of the people. Without people, there is no social media. Sin la gente no hay redes sociales. It doesn't exist. So as people evolve, platforms, they evolve too. And as marketers, as business owners, as executives here in the room, it's very important that you evolve your company and you evolve your brand with these platforms as well. Because what you don't want to have happen is invest so much time, effort, and money in just your website, or just your SEO, or just your mobile strategy, that you lose sight of the fact that today you have over 500 million active users on Instagram, or they have almost 200 active users on Snapchat. So before I talk about the future of social media, let's talk a little bit about the past of where we came from and how we got to this point. I've been using social media now since about 1995, when back then it was known as AOL, America Online. And then what happened? As the people that used that platform grew up and evolved, AOL eventually died. And the next option was MySpace. How many of you here remember MySpace? A lot of you in this room use MySpace. And then what happened? As the people of MySpace evolved, MySpace died. And then there was something else. Something else was Facebook. That something else was Twitter. So once again, social media evolution is inevitable. These platforms are always going to change based on the people, which brings us to where we're at today, which is it's Instagram versus Snapchat. You know, I do a lot of traveling. Yo viajo mucho, yo hablo mucho con los ejecutivos de las marcas y siempre hablo de Snapchat y Instagram. Y me fascina que en países como Perú usen Instagram más que usen Snapchat. Pero te digo algo, eso no quiere decir que no hay gente en Snapchat. Eso quiere decir que tu marca no está en Snapchat. There's a big opportunity under these umbrellas that it's up to you as marketers to take advantage of. You have the option whether or not your brand engages on these platforms. Now, if we're going to talk about the future, let's talk about the players. Behind me on the screen, you see Mark Zuckerberg. He's the founder of Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg's plan, ladies and gentlemen, is not to put Snapchat out of business. Mark Zuckerberg's plan is to change the way that we communicate as people. Once again, technology, social media, it's all about the people. Without people, there is no social media. So, as Mark Zuckerberg is looking to change the way that we communicate, and you've already seen this happen by launching Facebook, Messenger, WhatsApp, Oculus, which is virtual reality that you see here behind me. You have another player, which is Evan Spiegel. Evan Spiegel is the founder of Snapchat. And while as marketers, it's a very fun game to play, who's beating who, what these guys are doing is trying to compete for your attention. And as marketers, we are all competing amongst ourselves to compete for attention as well. In Evan Spiegel's case, it's not to change the way that we communicate, but it's rather to change the way that we view the world around us. Last year, Snapchat came out with spectacles. These are sunglasses in which you press a button and you can record a snap. Also, there's augmented reality. So, virtual reality is Facebook, augmented reality, using animation and filters like you see here in front of you on the screen behind me. You have these different face filters, which transform someone's face, enhances the way that you communicate. Once again, this is augmented reality. But it's very important that as you sit down and you analyze where are we going to be investing our time, money, and effort, that you really look at the current state of social media, which is where we're at right now. And you see there's this breakdown behind me. Facebook owns the lion's share when it comes to digital attention. I'll step aside so you guys can take a photo of this. And it's not just Facebook, the platform, but it's WhatsApp. I'm fascinated when I travel throughout Europe and Latin America to see how WhatsApp is a platform with over 1 billion active users. Use more than platforms like Twitter. Use more than platforms like Snapchat. But yet in the United States, no one's talking that WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger are perhaps two of the greatest social networks to exist right now, yet no one's talking about it because the way that we often view marketing on social media is one to many. I've heard this phrase mentioned here at this conference a couple times, human to human, person to person, one to one. That's marketing. Social media audiences today are more fragmented than they've ever been. And what I mean by this, by social media audiences are fragmented, is the fact that because there's not loyalty to one platform whatsoever, your job essentially becomes, how do I build a strategy, all-encompassing, that reaches multiple channels to reach as many people as I possibly can? Now, I'm going to go ahead and put you guys through this test real quick. How many of you in this room are on Facebook? Raise your hand. Sube las manos si tú tienes una cuenta de Facebook. Sube tu mano. Ok. Yo quiero saber quién hoy, en esta mañana, se levantó y la primera cosa que hiciste es chequear tu Facebook para ver qué marca está poniendo contenido. What I want to see is who in this room, the first thing that you did this morning was you woke up and you went on Facebook to see what your favorite brand of all time posted. Look around. Look around. No hands. Maybe I saw one or two. So what does that say, ladies and gentlemen? That means this. This is your audience on Facebook. The most powerful social network in the world, but yet organic reach is at an all-time low when it comes to brands because you, including myself as consumers, aren't even consuming marketing content. Let's put that in perspective. We in this room are all consumers. We in this room are all Facebook users for the most part. About 90% of 1,000 people in this room are on Facebook. But yet we ourselves are not instinctively going out to see what brands are posting. We as brands and as marketers expect people to go ahead and drop what they're doing and see our latest post, our latest GIF, our latest video. But the reality is people aren't seeing it because you're not making a human connection with them. Instead of storytelling, which I'm going to talk to you about, what you're doing is you're advertising. your marketing. And the reality is that the key word in social media is social. You have to socialize. Now, I'm going to share with you guys an example here of interacting with a chatbot. Chatbots are getting ready to take over social media. They're getting ready to take over and really replace community managers and replace how people engage with brands. And what you're seeing here, the example behind me, is most recently I was looking to go to Denmark for a speaking engagement. And I reached out to Marriott, one of the largest hotel chains in the world. And what was my experience engaging and interacting with Marriott? As you can see here, I typed on Messenger, I'm looking to rent a room in Denmark, and I kept getting this response, the same response over and over again. Esto aquí es un ejemplo de yo hablando con un bot en la página de Marriott, buscando un hotel en Denmark, en Copenhagen. Y ves aquí que no estoy comunicándome con un ser humano, estoy comunicándome con un bot, un chatbot. Social media and information overload. How many of you use, let's say, 3 social networks, at least 3 social networks? Son las manos. Usan más de 3 redes sociales. Look around. Once again, it proves my point. There's social media overload. There's no loyalty whatsoever. So how do you change that? How do you actually get people to pay attention? Well, first of all, you build community. You build a community of loyal followers. And I know we're almost in the year 2018. Throughout the last decade, you've probably heard a lot of thought leaders and gurus talk to you about building community. But this is real talk. This is the truth. You have to build a community of followers one by one by one. And I'm going to share some examples with you guys. This right here is a city block in New York. Esto aquí es en Nueva York. Esto aquí parece unas personas que son homeless, no tienen casa. Looks like a bunch of homeless people sitting out on a block in New York City. You know what? They're actually not homeless. They're lining up outside of an Apple store for hours, in some cases sleeping and spending an entire night outside of an Apple store just to buy the new iPhone 8. That, ladies and gentlemen, is an example of building community. When your brand is so good, it's so consistent, and you're constantly delivering that you have people willing to sleep outside just to buy from your brand. So how do you reach this audience? The millennials, Generation Z. And for those of you watching out there on YouTube or somewhere on social media, hear me out. President Trump has more people talking about his tweets on a daily basis than any president up to this point in U.S. history. More so than President Obama, more so than President Bush. And you know what? Let's face it, there's a lot of people that don't like his content. But guess what? He's relevant. People talk about him. My point that I'm trying to make here, and if you read this tweet on the screen behind me, my use of social media is not presidential, it's modern day presidential. Make America great again. What does that mean when you break it down? Not presidential, it's modern day presidential. He's different. If you want to stand out on social media, if you want people to see your content, if you want people to care, you have to be different. Si quieres que la gente enganche con tu contenido y que lo miren, tienes que ser diferente, como presidente Trump. Diferente, único. Si no vas a ser diferente, si no vas a ser único, vas a gastar tu tiempo. So, I'll repeat this. If you're not going to be different, if you're not going to be unique, you're going to waste your time. Now, Maya Angelou, okay, it's one of my favorite figures of all time, says people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget the way that you made them feel. The same holds true in marketing, the same holds true in social media, the same holds true with everything that we do in business today. Whether you're Trump, whether you are Coca-Cola, whether you are a small business here in Peru, your product will sell for you, but your customer experience, like Apple, is actually going to get people to talk about you well beyond sale. Which brings me to storytelling. Storytelling is the new content marketing. The person that is on the screen behind me is a storyteller. His name is Sean Duras. He's a good friend. He's very well known on YouTube, very well known on Snapchat. In fact, at one point, Sean had more people seeing his content on Snapchat than that of the Kardashians. And I like using Sean as an example because in this day and age, ladies and gentlemen, people aren't going anymore to Netflix to watch a show to get entertained. People anymore aren't following a celebrity. What they're doing is they're following other people to see what those people are doing. So the reason why I say storytelling is the new content marketing, porque la historia hoy en día es el nuevo contenido del marketing, is because it's what people remember you by. It's what people can see, what people can touch. If I pull out my phone right now, the audience that follows me on Snapchat and Instagram is going to feel what it's like to be on this stage with me. They're probably going to be much more engaged by me anytime I tell them I'm going to do a speaking engagement after that, because they want to see and feel that experience. And the same holds true for companies. The same holds true for brands. Every single person in this room sells something. Every single person in this room is trying to go ahead and generate revenue and make money. I get it. How you get there has become challenging, because let's face it, social media is, well, it's free to have a presence. It's really not free. It takes time to actually tell stories about your brand. It takes time to tell stories about what makes your products unique, what makes your company complete. So creators nowadays are in fact the new celebrity. You know, I have 2 kids that consume YouTube content more than they watch TV. And the reason why is because these YouTubers that you see behind me, those are their new heroes. You know, market, and my daddy, buy this candy, or daddy, buy this soap cuando estoy en el supermercado, y mi hija quiere que le compre algo, y me dice, ella vio ese producto, vamos a decir Tide, jabón de Tide, en un blog de YouTube. Eso a mí me dice que hoy en día los creators son los nuevos celebrities. Te doy un ejemplo aquí. Casey Neistat es un YouTuber muy famoso. Casey Neistat is a very famous YouTuber. In fact, Casey Neistat gets over 1 million views in one day on YouTube. Snapchat is the most powerful platform today to reach millennials and Generation Z. So if your brand in this room is trying to sell to millennials, si ustedes están tratando de vender a los millennials o a Generation Z, tienes que estar en Snapchat. No doubt about it. Now, I know I'm going to hear this argument probably once I leave this stage, so I'll just address it for all 1,000 of you in the room. Well, Peru is not big on Snapchat. We here don't use Snapchat a lot. Well, guess what? Congratulations. You can get on Snapchat very early here in Peru before the rest of Peru gets on Snapchat. The same thing happens with all of these social networks. As long as there's a life and a pulse on these social networks and there's people paying attention, you absolutely need to have a presence there, provided, this is the big if, provided that your audience lives there. So if you say to me, Carlos, I have a brand that appeals to 45 to 55-year-olds, I'll probably tell you Snapchat's not the place to engage them, Facebook is. Now, when you look at the breakdown here of users on Snapchat, you have over 166 million daily active users, which is great. It's not enough. It's not Instagram. It's not Messenger. It's not WhatsApp. I give you that. However, look at this next stat over to the right. The average number of times that someone logs into Snapchat on a daily basis is 18 plus. More than 18 times. Think about yourselves. Do any one of you log on to Facebook more than 18 times in one day? Do any of you go to Twitter or YouTube more than 18 times in one day? Chances are, no. So the reason why Snapchat has such a high penetration and retention rate, which that's the name of the game, is retention, keeping people around to watch, is because the content is short and because the content disappears. Snapchat figured it out. Snapchat figured if we want people to keep coming back over and over and over again, you have to make the content short and you have to put a timestamp on the content. Now, when you look to the right, the average number of times, of minutes, that your Snapchat user is spending on the platform is more than 30 minutes. So more than 30 minutes is the number of time that people are spending on Snapchat on a daily basis, which brings me to this next point. Snapchat is essentially replacing the TV. When you really think about the length of a TV program, the average TV program is about 30 minutes in length. Now, when you look at the Discover section of Snapchat, you see TV networks, you see CNN, you see Fox, you see ESPN, you see Cosmopolitan. Different traditional media companies now are creating micro-content on Snapchat. So what I'm trying to get across to you is that if you have these traditional media companies on Snapchat, what does that tell you? They're seeing the future. They're seeing not just the future, but the now, which is engage millennials, engage Generation Z now, so you build customers for life. Now, when you look at the breakdown, this is for the US, so I apologize in advance. 77% of the users on Snapchat are above the age of 18. I often hear from other counterparts of the marketing industry that Snapchat's just for kids. Guess what? When Facebook started about 12 years ago or so, back then you needed to have a college email address just to have a Facebook account. Facebook started very young, Twitter started very young. Guess what? Snapchat started very young, it's starting to mature. In fact, the majority of Snapchat's audience is above the age of 18, to be exact, okay, 77% of the users above the age of 18. In addition, you look at this breakdown of millennials. Once again, 18 to 40-year-olds. Those are your millennials. On any given day in the US, Snapchat reaches over 40% of them. Now, if you're still not convinced, let me share a very quick case study with you. Is everyone here in the room familiar with the brand Gatorade for the most part? It's a very iconic brand. Great. Gatorade, typically every single year, runs a 30-second TV commercial during the Super Bowl. That TV commercial typically costs somewhere about $5 million for 30 seconds of airtime when people normally are getting up and going to the bathroom. So essentially they flush $5 million of ad spend down the toilet every year on a TV commercial. This year for the Super Bowl, instead of running a TV commercial, what Gatorade did was they bought a sponsored lens on Snapchat. 165 million people around the world saw Gatorade's branding and content through other people's accounts. That 165 million is more than the number of people who saw the Super Bowl itself. So more people saw Gatorade branding, 165 million, the number of people who saw the Super Bowl itself. So I always like pointing this out because a lot of friends of mine who are marketers, a lot of friends of mine that are into LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube always like to say that there's no value in Snapchat. Well, guess what? There's a lot of value because there's people with a pulse on Snapchat. And I can tell you exactly who those people are, and I can show you, which I will here in a moment, how to actually make this platform work for you. However, here's what Snapchat is not, ladies and gentlemen. Snapchat's not another platform to sell things. Let's explain in Spanish. Snapchat no es otra plataforma para vender. Porque el audience in Snapchat es joven, son millennials, son esta generación. Están usando filters con rainbow vomit. You're speaking to a much younger audience that's using filters with rainbow vomit coming out of their mouths. So I put this into perspective because half of our job as marketers and as business professionals is to understand the platforms, understand the demographics of who we're trying to sell to. The other half is actually understanding how to make content that sells to engage them. So knowing this puts into perspective that if you're speaking to a much younger audience, that this is the way that they're communicating and sending messages to their friends. Well, guess what? You have to speak to them in the same exact way. Now, let's talk about content. In fact, before we get to content, let's talk about the keys to growing. Because growing your presence on social media today, I realize it, guys, it's a challenge. Whether it's Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook, it's a challenge to grow. I asked you guys before, how many of you in this room are on multiple social networks? Almost every single hand went up. So let's get into the first strategy, which is if you want to grow your presence on Snapchat or on Instagram or any one of these social networks, you have to leverage your existing social media presence. Chances are by now you've spent a lot of time, money, and resources in growing your Facebook. You spend time growing your Twitter. You have an email database. You have a website. These are all assets that you need to be using in order to promote what's happening somewhere else. So what I mean by this is, if you have content that you want people to see on Snapchat, or you have content that you want people to see on Instagram, then you have to go, once again, omni-channel, and you have to let your audience and your community on these other platforms know that there's something over there for them to watch. An example of it here is Warby Parker. They're an optical brand. Warby Parker creates great content on Snapchat, but guess what? They go to Twitter, they go to Facebook, and they tell their audience about it. Same thing if you have an email database. Email is not dead. Just because we talk about social media as much as we do, email is not dead. In fact, it's a great way for you to now do segmented emails. So if you have a way to segment your audience and send an email specifically to your millennial audience, send them an email. Invite them to add you on Snapchat. Invite them to add you on Instagram. Let that audience know that you have something of value there for them. The next strategy is working with influencers. We hear about influencer marketing all the time, and I'm a big fan of working with content creators. I'm not as big of a fan of working with an influencer, because I think an influencer is someone that can be bought. And guess what? People see through that. So what you really want to do is you want to work with content creators, known as influencers, for a couple of reasons. One, these individuals have reach, so they have a following. Two, they have storytelling skills. Meaning if you give them a phone, if you give them an assignment, they're going to go ahead and know how to tell a story. However, that's one strategy, working with like the big mega influencer. Again, anyone can be bought. What you really want to do is you want to work with more of the micro influencer. Someone who doesn't necessarily have a lot of followers, but someone that can create content for you to your followers. I'll give you guys an example. Let's imagine that your brand, every time that you post content, has a dozen customers that are consistently engaging, consistently commenting. Or you have customers that every single time they buy from your store, every time they buy product from you, they're the first ones that are going on Instagram and they're tagging you. They're the first ones that are going on Facebook and they're sharing their experience. These are the micro influencers that you want to work with. These are the individuals that you want to reach out to, and you want to maybe offer them product, maybe offer them a little bit of money to go ahead and create content for you. Because that's a real influencer. An influencer is not just someone that has a lot of followers on social media. An influencer is someone that knows how to influence. And the way that you influence today on social media is, once again, telling authentic stories about goods, products, and services and what they mean to you. We will give you a free pair of shoes every single month for the next year, and all you have to do is, as soon as the shoes arrive, document the experience on Snapchat or on Instagram, and we'll give you a free pair of shoes. And by document, I mean create content around what it's like to receive the shoes, unbox them, put them on, lace them up, actually do this and walk around and show what it looks like. Show that experience. Everyone has an experience, good or bad, with the brand. If more brands take the time to do that, over time, what's going to happen is people are going to stop looking at your brand as just someone who's trying to sell something, and instead you're a brand who's spotlighting the experience, the great experience, I want to add, that people have with your brand. And you don't have to find a huge influencer like a Kardashian. You already have those people that are already buying from you. Now, let's move on and talk about geofilters. Geofilters are unique to Snapchat from an advertising standpoint. Think of geofilters as an inexpensive way to advertise and reach an audience that's on Snapchat. And what I really love about geofilters is a couple things. One, they're not expensive. In fact, you can spend as little as $5 on a geofilter ad, and you can cover up to 200,000 square feet of space. Or you can put geofilters in cities like New York, San Francisco, LA, wherever there's a concert, wherever there's a sporting event, you can run a geofilter. So for any one of you in this room that runs some sort of an e-commerce business and you sell things online, even though you're in Peru, you can run geofilters anywhere in the world, targeting people at different events, different places, different cities. Another reason why I like geofilters, besides advertising, is the fact that you don't have to have an account on Snapchat and be creating content consistently. You can have the geofilters run, and as you see here with the example of W Hotels, you can have these geofilters strategically placed at your place of business, so anytime someone goes there, they can use the geofilter and they can add that branded content, that branded logo to their content. So think of geofilters as a way of getting your customers to create more user-generated content with your logo. Another tactic for growing your presence on social media, as well as Snapchat and Instagram, is run good old-fashioned Facebook ads. I tell you, I like to share this growth hack because it works, and it worked for me. Last year, I spent $50 on a Facebook ad targeting people that like Snapchat and BuzzFeed and Mashable on Facebook. So again, Facebook ad, spent 50 bucks. It was targeting about 5,000 users, so it was a very narrow, very targeted audience. This ad that you see behind me got me 1,000 new followers on Snapchat. So if you're sitting here thinking, okay, well I've got $50 to spend, I want to start a Snapchat account, and I want to make sure that I have people that I'm adding to Snapchat here in Peru, what you need to do is you need to run a Facebook ad, also run an Instagram ad as well. Optimize that ad specifically for mobile, so someone will see this ad with your snap code on mobile device. Have a call to action saying, screenshot to add me on Snap or add us on Snap. And what you'll see happen is people will start seeing this ad in their newsfeed on Facebook. They'll be seeing this ad on Instagram, and then they will screenshot their phone, they'll go over to Snapchat, and then they'll add you. So you'll start growing your followers very quickly that way. But the key that I've discovered with Facebook ads over the years is not just throwing money out there to see what sticks, but to actually run targeted ads. So what you want to do is you want to target a very specific age group here in Lima or here in Peru. Maybe target 18 to 25-year-olds, and then go on Facebook ads to interests. And for interests, type Snapchat, type BuzzFeed, type Mashable, TechCrunch, any of the trade publications or social networks that millennial uses, add that to interests. So now you're running this targeted interest-based ad to promote your snap code to a very specific audience, which once again is your millennials and most likely the community here in Peru that's using Snapchat. Another tactic for you is location-based advertising. So if you have a brick-and-mortar business, if you have any physical business, what you want to do is you want to take your snap code and you want to put your snap code on signs throughout that place of business. The more people see this, the more they're going to go ahead and know to add you on Snapchat. Same thing works if you want to promote your Facebook or your Twitter or your Instagram. Make sure that people at that place of business can see that you have a presence on these social networks. Now, I like to work with real estate agents a lot because real estate agents in the United States are all about building their personal brand. And I saw this online, so I want to share this with you guys. This right here is a sign for an open house with a snap code. And it just says open house snap code. If you scan it, it takes you to a realtor, a real estate agent, posting content about that open house. You can do this at your place of business. You can do this at your office. And I encourage you to do it. Now, let's talk about the keys to content. So I've given you some guidance and some advice on how to grow your presence on Snapchat and on Instagram. Now let's talk about the keys to creating content. Because the greatest challenge that brands face today is content creation. Content is what keeps your community engaged and coming back. Contenido es lo que va a enganchar a tu comunidad para ver tu marca todos los días. So it's very important that your content falls into one of these three categories, if not all three. If you're a web hosting company, you can use storytelling as a way to teach about web hosting. If you're a graphic designer, you can use storytelling to teach people about graphic design and why it's important. If you're Nike, you can teach people about how your products are made. Any single brand. I'm seeing Coca-Cola in the back of the room. If you're Coca-Cola, you can use storytelling to teach people how you make soda. So think about that. But also don't lose sight of the fact that your brand should be fun and your brand should be creative, because Snapchat is not Facebook. Snapchat's not sales, Snapchat's not advertising. Snapchat is Snapchat. You have to be creative and you have to be original. One of the greatest mistakes that I see brands today making, and I see people doing this all the time as well, is what do? They repurpose their content everywhere. I don't know where marketers started thinking it's a wise idea to start repurposing your content everywhere. What you don't want to do is just repurpose and take your snap and then upload it over to Instagram, or take your Instagram content and screenshot it and then put it over to Snapchat. Let's face it, these social networks do a lot of the same. Right now you're looking at Instagram, now you're looking at Snapchat. They do a lot of the same, but what you want to think about is what I said before. The people on these platforms are the ones that dominate, and you want to ensure that their experience is one in which when they see your content, they're seeing something that's fresh, that they're not just getting handed over to them, that they're already seeing somewhere else. Because then you're not giving your audience on that platform a really authentic reason to go ahead and follow you and consume your content. Now that we got that part out of the way about original content, the next is the length of your stories. Whether it's Instagram stories, Facebook stories, Snapchat stories. This isn't YouTube. I said before Snapchat's replacing the TV, but this isn't TV. It's online digital content. Every single story. Think about when you were a baby, or think about when you were a child, and you had your mom and dad or your abuelita read you a bedtime story. All those stories had a beginning, they had a middle, and they had an end. Online content works in the same exact way. You know, I started my morning here in Lima today telling my Instagram community and my Snapchat community that I'm excited, I'm here in Lima, I'm getting ready to speak at EXMA, and then guess what? I brought them through a progression of today. I went and got a haircut, I came here, I talked to a few people, I showed my community, the audience. Right before I got on this stage, I was creating content on social media. That's the middle. And then there's got to be an end. Because their time and attention is a valuable currency in today's state of marketing. So where I'm going with this, friends, is when you create content for your brand, actually sit down and think, what are we going to post? Don't just grab a phone and start posting anything. A lot of people that buy from your brand that I'm sure will learn more about what makes your company unique. What gives your company a heartbeat. Your company culture. Things like that is what you should really be spotlighting. Once again, I'm going to pick on Coca-Cola because I see them in the back of the room, and they're also a great sponsor of the event, and I really like their content on social media. But if you're Coca-Cola, how are the sodas made? What makes them a great place to work? These are all answers that you can solve through storytelling. And I know you're probably sitting there thinking, well, how's that going to, telling a story, how's that going to make people want to buy from my brand? Well, guess what? If you make your brand and your company relatable and human and likable, more people over time, when they think about going to a store, or when they think about where to go to dinner, or when they think about what to buy, if you're constantly there in their face, then they're going to instinctively think about you, and they're going to think about buying from you. Now, I mentioned culture. I'm a big fan of company culture. I think more companies should do this than what we see, which is employee advocacy. Oftentimes, employee advocacy is something that companies, at least in the United States, think, well, our companies are on social media, let's give them content, let's get them to share content about our company, and that's it, we're done with it. Employee advocacy is actually showing what makes your company human. Employee advocacy is giving your employees access to speak about their experience of working for your company on your social networks. And I'll give you an example of it. Cisco, the networking company, does a very good job with their We Are Cisco campaign for employee advocacy. And you see the example here behind me. You see a very happy, smiley employee on Cisco's Snapchat account talking about what it's like to work at Cisco. So if you're sitting here today thinking creating content's a challenge at our company, we're boring, we're old, we're not fun, guess what? All of you in this room are employees somewhere. All of you in this room can talk about what it's like to work at your company a day in the life. Because once again, that's what makes you human. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, people relate to people. People don't relate to logos. People don't relate to products. These are just things that we instinctively buy because we have to. But people do business with who they feel comfortable doing people with, which is why showing your company culture is extremely important, yet I'm not seeing a lot of companies doing it today, and we need to change that. Think of hashtags as categories on Instagram. Someone can be searching a category of what's of interest to them without ever following your brand, but yet still see your content. So if I'm into sneakers, and I look up hashtag Nike Air Force Ones, guess what I'm going to see on Instagram? I'm going to see a whole gallery, probably thousands of photos that people have used the hashtag Nike Air Force Ones in. And now I'm going to be able to see the artistic work of how people take their photos, how they look on. I'm going to then be able to see people's accounts to see who posted it. That wouldn't happen without the hashtag. So think of hashtagging your content as a way to make your content more discoverable. You can add up to 30 hashtags on an Instagram post. So once again, on a single Instagram post, you can add up to 30 hashtags, whether it's a video or whether it's a photo. I encourage that you use up all 30 of those, because by using those hashtags, it's now going to expand your reach, and more people who have otherwise never seen your content are going to be able to see your Instagram content in their feed. That's one. Two is locations. A lot of consumers, myself included, before they go to a restaurant, what do? They go to Yelp, they go to TripAdvisor if it's a hotel, they go to Foursquare, and they do research. How many of you here do research before you spend money on going on vacation somewhere? A lot of you, I would imagine, right? What you want is for people to go to your place of business. You want them to showcase the experience. You want them to tag your location. So now when someone makes a decision, if they're going to go, for example, to your hotel or to your restaurant, they're able to actually look and see the experience of what that looked like. So I encourage you, if you're not doing this already, make sure that you're encouraging your audience, your community, to have a particular hashtag that they're using in their content. Make sure they're tagging your location when they go to your place of business. And even you yourself, as you're creating content, make sure that you're tagging that content. Now let's talk about live video. I've talked a lot about micro-content storytelling, and live video, specifically Facebook Live, is one of these things that I feel often gets misused and really abused by people and by brands. And the reason why I say this is because there's nothing more frustrating to me as a Facebook user than going on Facebook and seeing a random person of someone in their underwear doing a Facebook Live from their house. It's just not something I want to see. Or when a brand is just doing a random Facebook Live with a phone, it doesn't sound good, it doesn't look good, the audio's bad. It's a very poor user experience for me at that point. What I would recommend as you're doing live video, whether it's Facebook Live or whether it's Instagram Live, is actually promote this content in advance. Just because you do a live video doesn't mean that people have to be surprised by it. In fact, what you should be doing is you should get your community excited. So if you have an influencer takeover doing a Facebook Live, if you have something of value to show that's going to be an exciting experience, what you're doing once again is you're leveraging Twitter, you're leveraging Facebook, you're leveraging email to let the community know that on this day at this time, they need to go on Facebook, specifically to your Facebook page, to see a Facebook Live. Once again, guys, multi-channel awareness is the key. Everything that you do on social media needs to have a purpose. Absolutely needs to have a purpose. And you need to have a multi-channel strategy. A lot of what you do on social media is going to be to drive awareness at scale for brands. And I have this breakdown here of how I like to balance perhaps the two most popular social networks today, which is Snapchat and Instagram, as well as using Facebook for live video. First, Snapchat is where you take your community behind the scenes. So very different strategy than Instagram. Snapchat, behind the scenes, it's raw, it's organic content. Instagram is where you go to curate content. Very, very different user experience than Snapchat. Yes, you have stories. However, With Instagram, you have something that you don't have on Snapchat, and that's the ability to have something to leave behind, a photo, a video, through your gallery. There's content that you can upload to Instagram, but then you can go over to Snapchat and you can tell people about that content. You can tell them about that story to then bring them back to your Instagram. And then Facebook, through live video, is where you go to create. So, I'll break this down for you. Let's say you're a brand and you have a campaign, and you're going to go ahead and have a very well-known influencer do a takeover of your Facebook, and they're going to do a live video on Facebook. Well, first of all, what you want to do is you want to have that promoted on your page as an event at least a week in advance. At least a week before you're on Facebook Live, you need to go ahead and get your audience, get your community excited. Then what you're going to do is you're going to have that influencer go over on Instagram stories or on Snapchat stories, or both, and they're going to talk about how and why your community needs to go on Facebook at a particular day, at a particular time to see their content. So again, this is the promotion to get people to watch a live video. From there, the day of, you're going to use Snapchat to go behind the scenes of what that looks like. Once again, getting your community excited to then go see that Facebook Live. And at the very end, on Instagram, and you're going to post photos of what that entire experience looked like. So if you look at this as multi-channel awareness, now you start to look at how different these social networks really are, and how what you should be doing is tell one big story with smaller distribution channels and networks of how you tell that story. Once again, I'm going to talk a little bit about Instagram. The keys to using Instagram. No different than Snapchat. Make sure your content's short, fun, educational, creative. Also, make sure you're using hashtags. Make sure that you're using the different features within Instagram to stay relevant, such as live video stories. Now, as we look to wrap this up, I'm going to talk to you about conversion, which is how do you make money off of all this? Because I recognize as business operators and owners and as marketing executives, we're all in business for the bottom line. So how do you measure this today through storytelling? I talked before about Facebook ads. The key with Facebook ads is to ensure that your Facebook ads are targeted. Snapchat recently rolled out an advertising platform very similar to Facebook. Through the Snapchat app, you can make a snap code that points to your website. Sorry to my friends at Coke in the back of the room, but in the United States, Pepsi is currently running a campaign that has custom snap codes on every single bottle that you buy of Pepsi. That when you scan the snap code, it doesn't take you to Snapchat, but instead it takes you to a contest. It takes you to an experience on a mobile device. You can do this as well without ever creating any content on Snapchat. The next is inserting links into your snaps. With Snapchat, you can insert a link and someone can swipe up and they can go to your website, which is great. With Instagram, the only way that you can link out an Instagram post on stories to your website is if you have over 10,000 followers. Whereas with Instagram, you can start with one follower, one friend, and you can insert links in all of your snaps. My recommendation to you is that when you're inserting links into snaps, that you use a tracking URL. What you want to do is you want to use a custom URL so you can now measure every single person that visits your website as a result of your story on Snapchat. So once again, work with your webmaster, use Bitly. I'm a big fan of using Bitly because you can create free custom URLs that way. And then you'll have analytics data, so when you create a story on Snapchat, and let's say you have 100 people that visit your website, you can see that half of those, for example, that day came from Snapchat and the story that you created. So very important that you're using tracking URLs. Out the day he's snapping, what DJ Khaled is doing is he's building a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. DJ Khaled not only is the most viewed person on Snapchat today, but DJ Khaled also is one of the most viewed influencers, creators, people, whatever you want to call them, online today. Because in the year 2017, DJ Khaled has figured out the one thing that almost every single Fortune 500 brand has not been able to figure out. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how to be real. How to be real, that's it. What you see behind me is a product of what happens when you're real. You become someone whose career is on the decline to someone who's now, at least in the United States and in most parts of the world, very popular. Real stories about his real day to engage real people. So, the challenge to every single person in this room is to be much more like DJ Khaled and be less like a brand. So be much more like this individual who's real and be less like the brand that you are, that I guarantee not a lot of people are engaging with. So I want to thank you so much for your time. Muchas gracias por su tiempo. Muchas gracias, EXMA. También te quiero invitar, si tienen algunas preguntas, si quieren tomar un selfie, voy a estar aquí atrás. Muchas gracias.